Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of the CounterAction Show. Our goal on this channel is to provide a platform for veterans such as ourselves and the rest of y'all to service members and their families to share their experiences with the military from starting enlistment all the way up till, I guess, to the present time. And the purpose is going to be to bring awareness for veteran issues and challenging veteran stereotypes. We are on YouTube and as CounterAction, and on Spotify as CounterAction, as well as perhaps on some other platforms. So if you watch something else, just search for CounterAction, and you will hopefully find us. I'm Andrew, and I'm here with Jonathan, and we are going to go ahead and just kind of introduce ourselves, because this is the first episode, so y'all should probably at the very least know who the two kahunas are. So I'm Andrew. Man, I love my vernacular sometimes. I'm a veteran of the Marine Corps. I was in from 2011 to 2015, got honorable discharge, left as a corporal, which, at least for the Marines, that's a non-commissioned officer. I know other branches like Navy and I think Army don't really start that till E5, so that's why I bring it up. I got a bachelor's degree from Iowa State in 2017, and then I went on to get selected to be an officer in 2009 and 20, but got hurt during some training in 2020 and 21, got medically discharged, and here I am. Between 2015 and I guess now, I've done things like worked in schools with students with special needs. I've been an armed security guard, worked in public health kinds of stuff with like aquatics and emergency response and a whole slew of things. Ran a fitness store for a little while. Go figure. The Jarhead ran a fitness store for a little bit. So I kind of wanted to start this channel because I have a passion to help others and spread awareness with veteran service member issues. I've had a lot of them myself, such as mental health. I've had job interviews where I was actually asked, "Do you know the alphabet?" And I thought they were kidding, so I started off as like, "Oh, ha ha, hilarious!" Like, dumb jarhead crayon eaters, A, B, and they're like, "All right, keep going." And they made me go all the way through Z. So that was an experience, and it's happened once or twice, and it shouldn't have even happened once. But hey, it is what it is. And there's also, of course, all kinds of other things like losing jobs because people just put in stereotypes of you must be super aggressive. I don't know if it's just a Marine thing or a military thing, but that's part of why we're doing this, is to help folks kind of maybe lose some stigmas, kind of know more about veterans. If you're wanting to like join, then maybe you can get an idea. We're gonna have more than bad stories. There'll be more than bad stuff. Just to get an idea of what you're getting yourself into or what your loved one is getting into. Hopefully one day I hope to end up being a congressman or a senator, which is why I'm going to use my real name for this whole thing, which is Andrew. So that way maybe I get some name recognition later on. So I want to make changes for you guys. All right, Jonathan, you want to tell them about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan. I did 6 years United States Navy. I was a submariner, wearing the hat. I was a nuclear machinist mate, so I was doing maintenance on propulsion systems, steam systems, that kind of thing. I enlisted in 2012, got out in 2018. Got out as an E5, petty officer second class. So while I was in, I kind of became the stereotypical like boot camp graduate where, I made every possible mistake I could while I was in, got married to somebody I didn't really know, drank too much, spent all my money. And so I think because of that, I got to see really how little the Navy actually supports people that have issues, which really it gave me a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth and made me want to find some way to help people to actually get help as compared to just have to deal with stuff. I got lucky in that, after I kind of got things sorted out at home, I got better. I was lucky enough that I was able to start controlling my drinking and I was able to progress in my career. But I know that very oftentimes that's not the case. So, I wanted to find some way to help people. And then even before I enlisted, I was always kind of aware of veterans issues. I grew up, my dad donated to the VFW every year and made sure to keep that kind of in my view. And then, after I got out, I was going to the VA trying to get help with like mental health issues and that kind of stuff. And basically I just kept getting brushed off. I went to the VA to get help with mental health and they told me, well, you got to wait 2 or 3 weeks to have an orientation. So I had the orientation. Now you got to wait 2 or 3 weeks to, maybe see somebody. And when I finally saw somebody, basically I got told, well, your options are I can give you pills or maybe perhaps possibly we can get you somebody to talk to maybe. And at the time, I was actually working at a VA hospital as an orderly, and I got to see, what the veterans were actually going through. I would talk to the veterans while I was, wheeling them from one place to another or helping them out in their room or whatever. And they told me about, some of them were struggling with trying to get the VA to recognize their disabilities or trying to even get medication. I had a guy in my VFW post. He was a Vietnam vet, and he'd been fighting since Vietnam to get the VA to recognize the Agent Orange after effects as actually service related. It's been 50 years, and he's still not covered for all of the Agent Orange effects because they're trying to say that it wasn't the military, and just all of that together kind of gave me a real desire to.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
So I guess when would one come across Agent Orange, which to my knowledge is exclusively was used in warfare as being non-military connected? What was their reasoning for where you bump into that elsewhere?
Yeah, it was basically we don't want to admit it was our fault.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
he said he's had 3 appeals denied. Yeah, so just kind of all that together, kind of led me to kind of be where I'm at now. I've gone to school off and on, never really stuck. So now I got out. I'm lucky enough. I'm using my training that I got in the military, working at a power plant. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much everything, kind of baseline about me.
Yeah,
I think I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, got into some stuff that I think we're going to cover here in a minute.
No, you're good. You're good. I was thinking some of that stuff. I didn't go as much, but maybe I guess with the Y. So we'll see. But yeah, like I've had a little bit different experience with the VA. It hasn't been the worst. It wasn't great. Like I guess they were gonna send me some like stuff to help with like nightmares and whatever. And it's like a month later. I hadn't gotten it in the mail yet. So it's like, all right, cool. Like I called up and they're like, oh, like we'll send it in to you, no problem. Like 2 weeks later, I didn't have it, so I called back, and then the guy was like, oh, your address was flagged. Is this your right address? And I was like, oh, that'd been a great question to ask like a month and a half. You guys called me 15 times about an appointment that I've already said I'm going to be there for 4 other times. Like, so that's just but that's been like the worst of my VA stuff. But anyways, so thanks, man. Appreciate it, Jonathan. So, for how this channel came about, because that seems like a pretty interesting thing to cover, at least in the first one, is so I've been struggling with things like employment, mental health issues, and a whole bunch of other stuff for the past 6 years. I guess I didn't really get kicked up a whole lot until OCS dropped me, and my recruiting group was like, you can't go back now because you got, like, I guess a hardening tendon or something in your foot, so we're going to pretend like you don't exist. So they actually cut me out of like all the healthcare stuff. I was supposed to get like 6 physical therapy visits and a couple of doctor checkups and things. Like my foot might be fractured, according to the guy I did like a disability evaluation thing. And so the X-ray did is like, hey, can you tell me if it is fractured? Because that seems like a useful thing to know. And the guy's like, no, it's not our job. We're not allowed to tell you if your foot's fractured or not. I was like, oh, great. So it seems like a little thing you could just maybe on the side, like, send me a text like, hey, dude, your foot's fractured. Be careful. Anyways, so like that probably kicked up a whole slew of stuff. Like my poor wife, the last like 2 months have not been easy for me. But I've been wanting to do this kind of thing for a while because, like I mentioned before, I had interviews or HR would do things like ask me like to say the alphabet. I had one interview recently where it was like a panel of 6 people, and they didn't hire me. I thought it went amazing. Like every single YouTube creator, it does like 7 signs to know that your interview went well and you're going to get the job. Like I hit every single bucket, and it's not the first time I've had this happen. And so yeah, we moved on. So I asked them, I was like, hey, can you give me some insight? And they actually gave me some insight. They're like, nah, we're good. Like you don't need to know why we don't like you. And HR ended up saying that the panel thought I was too militaristic. And says, oh, well, can you explain that? Because I've been trying to be anti-militaristic for quite a while. And she comes back, she's like, yeah, they said that you were like one of the best candidates they had. They were like, you're like number 1, except for you were really passionate, really confident, and spoken with a loud voice. And they said it came off to them as aggressive. And I was like, what? You don't want to. So like that's not the first time either that I've had that kind of stuff happen. And so like I know I'm not the only one. I know there's plenty of other folks that have VA struggles.
Yeah.
I've known several people, either through friends of friends or a childhood guy I grew up with for a couple of years, who have killed themselves. And there's like, we need like awareness. People need like groups. I think one of the big things when you're in is you're used to like having like 85 dudes or something. You just like knock on their door in the barracks, like, hey, want to go get some sushi? And they're like, yeah, let's go get some sushi. And then when you get out, you got no one to get sushi with, and I think that's hard for a lot of folks, because transitioning is not easy. I also think there's quite a bit with like like the Marines when I was at OCS kind of put this really well. They take you from like a modern civilization where like things like aggression and violence are frowned upon and usually punished, to a warrior society, kind of like if you think like old Spartans is like kind of what they want to go for at least. And it's like, they tell you like all that civilian stuff is awful. If you have any of it, you're horrible. Like no one needs help. All this other stuff, and then you get out at some point. I mean, everyone leaves at some point, and you're back into this like, to you, the society you were told was absolute garbage, and but you have to now fit into it, and it's just a really really tough transition. So I figured, hey, we got all kinds of issues and stuff going on with things that, like, people need to know about. Like I got really tired and surprised by how much stuff people just didn't know. Like the number of folks that are civilian friends that'll be like, well, why are you complaining about jobs? Like you're more likely to get hired because of veteran preference. I'm like, you know that only applies to the interview, right? Like you only get 5 more points for the first interview, which is why I get a shit ton of interviews, but like that's it. To my understanding, it doesn't go past. And they're like, really? It's like, yeah. Like once you get to the actual interview, unless the actual hiring person or panel cares that you're a veteran, it doesn't matter like at all. Yeah. It makes no difference. Which has also been interesting, having interviews or whatever else it is, and they're like, oh my God, thank you for your service. We can't say enough and do enough to thank our veterans, but please don't work here. Oh, man. And I think having this kind of a channel would help a lot with showing them, like, because even just from this episode, they can see you and I are normal people. Yeah. And we're not like, we're probably in the middle. We got probably some extremely non-military type veterans, and you probably got some horrifically like kinds of dudes on the other end, and gals.
Yeah.
So we're probably somewhere in the middle, which is like the vast majority.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, yeah. And we might need like an hour off now and then just to like call like a mental health person or like a bizarre like a doctor's appointment time because they do them during working hours, which makes sense. But like that's about it. Like so.
Yeah, I got lucky in that everybody I worked with was in the Navy. So, every now and then when I do slip up and kind of go back, forget I'm not on the boat anymore, they all understand. So it's not like I don't look like some kind of monster for making maybe an off-color joke or something.
I've always had to be real careful. My first job I had was out of the Corps. It was a summer job because I was in school. I was managing like a city aquatics park kind of a thing. I've done a lot with aquatics, and I had to get something done, and so like I just like yelled it instead, like across the pool or something, because I don't know. And I came back as feedback because like he's so militaristic, like he's always like yelling, and I'm like, if you're like working outside, there's like 90 of you. Of course I'm gonna have to be loud. Like this has been a thing for a while for me. And then like when I worked at a school, my first school job, there was a lady, she had like a master's in visual vision stuff. So she knew Braille and was helping students that were blind and things like that. Sweet lady. But HR ended up saying she created a hostile work environment. And when we talked about it, she read everything through the lens of the military. Anything I did was perceived as being more aggressive than I even thought I was coming off or trying to be. And that's just been something I've always had to watch. From every job is supposedly a lot of folks just assume. I don't know if I'm also a big guy. I'm like 6'3", 220 pounds usually. So like it probably doesn't help a whole lot with the persona. But
yeah, and that's something that people don't think about when guys get out. Obviously people think about the stereotypical like the Vietnam vet with the PTSD flashbacks and stuff, having trouble integrating. But even just the average serviceman or service person getting out, it's an entirely different culture. things that I would say or do that were perfectly acceptable on the boat would get me fired in the real world, and it's not even necessarily that, somebody in that situation has some kind of an issue necessarily, or that they're a bad person or anything. It's just that, for 4, 6, 8, 10 years, you've been, it's like being in a different country, and that part of the transition is a lot harder, I think, than people that have never experienced to give it credit for.
Yeah.
Things like, what you were just saying, were just because, you maybe said something a little bit louder than what people would expect, all of a sudden you're coming off as aggressive. Like, no, that's just how we had to get our voice heard.
Yeah, like I'm not sure. Like people like to kind of joke about like, oh, boot camp's all yelling and screaming. I mean, it's not just boot camp, but there's like reasons for it because like
Yeah,
you don't always have a radio. So like OCS while I was there for those 5 weeks, everything was yelling and screaming, especially because you're supposed to be able to be leaders. Like the idea was like you have to be able to be loud enough under fire for people to be able to hear you and to be able to communicate effectively. And so eventually, when you got some 18 to 22-year-old, well, sure, they're not maybe trying to be officers. Like, it'd be kind of odd if an 18-year-old was able to be at OCS, but, whatever. I'm sure it's happened to somebody. Folks don't, like, you just get to so much yelling and stuff all the time that your voice just naturally gets louder. And folks, at least for the Marines, in my experience, always said loudness equals confidence. If you don't know what the hell you're doing, just be loud, and people will assume you know what you're doing. And so, like, I currently work at a high school. There's one gal. She was quiet as a mouse doing a presentation. Like people could barely hear her, and I kept trying to tell her. I was like, "Hey, girl, you gotta be louder. If you don't know what you're talking about, just yell it, and people will assume you know what you're talking about. If you don't, and then after I had that interview, which was a couple of days ago, I was like, well, maybe it's a good thing she's quiet. Might not be the worst deal. But there's a lot of subtle stuff I don't even think people think about because like how many folks would just think about like, oh, they have to yell all the time. Makes sense. They're just louder in general. Or I don't know. I guess you have to also have a certain bravado. Like you don't get to like certain ranks and promotions and whatnot unless you like, I don't know, like act like it anyways.
Yeah.
Whether you deserve it or not, it's a different other topic.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the whole thing. So if anyone's like wanting to share their opinions, like we want this to be more than just Jonathan and I. It could be like Jonathan with Beaver Lover 97 one day, or me with me with like two other people, or Jonathan and I just like for a while, just he and I coming up with stuff, or people send us emails and we'll give more info for how you guys can ask for questions, or if like you want to be like, what was your experience, or can you like I went through this, I don't want to talk about it, but can you talk about it, like, stuff like that. We'll have more like emails and stuff like that later on. So Jonathan, did you want to mention it all? You might have already gone over it. Why you wanted to like help me with this? Because I know like this started by me posting on Reddit and then getting banned. Like, hey, if I started a thing like this, do people think this would be like worth their time or not and be interesting? So, and then you hit me up and you're like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it really just it came down to just great timing. I had been off, and other than Reddit, I've still been off social media for 3, 4, 5 months, something. Because I just got tired of it. I got tired of all the crap that was, this side of people's yelling at this side of people, and they're yelling back, and I just had enough. But literally, the day that you posted, I was just like, I was at work, I was bored, I had nothing going on. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna jump on Reddit, but I'll stay away from anything that's controversial. I went on like the submarine Reddit and the veterans Reddit and stuff that was just like might get a little bit fiery, but wouldn't be too bad. And I just happened to be scrolling and saw your post asking about something like this. And if it would have been a different day, I wouldn't have seen it. If it would have been a day earlier, and if I'd have been there 20 minutes later, you would have already been banned and the post would have been gone. So yeah, I just happened to be scrolling Reddit and saw your post asking if somebody would be interested. And yeah, I mean, like I said, because of like what I experienced when I was in and what I've seen since I got out, there were days when I would come home from working at the hospital broken because of the things that I saw, or the stories that I got told, or the people that came in. And it was really hard seeing that and knowing that, that was around the time that there were news reports that veterans were shooting themselves in the parking lot of the VAs. Veterans were dying from untreated illness, and it's still happening. But now, the news has just moved on to something else. They need some other big headline, and that's still going on. It was going on then, and that coupled with where I was working, where I was at the time, really like took something I already cared about and just really ignited it. And I wanted to find a way to highlight these issues and to get my voice out there and to get other veterans' voices out there. Veterans that maybe weren't as fortunate as I am, that really need the help that they're just not getting. And I didn't know how to do that. I knew I could do YouTube videos all day, but what are the odds of that going anywhere? I could do podcasts all day, but I'm one person, how am I going to really get to use that? And just, I don't know, when I saw your post, it seemed like you really had a fire for this as well. And I really thought that between the two of us, we really had a chance to, maybe we won't ever make a large scale change. Maybe we won't go and testify in front of Congress and get a law passed or whatever, but it felt like we could at least help people. We could help at least on a small scale. At least somebody, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks from now, we do an episode and somebody hears it, and it's what they needed. I really thought that we could at least help person to person.
Yeah.
Just based on the passion it seemed like you had and the passion that I knew that I had.
Yeah, which that actually brings a pretty great segue for we need help with you from everyone. If you're like the brand new channels on YouTube are very like algorithms. I'm assuming Spotify's and stuff like that are probably very similar. Are not, I don't think they're necessarily suppressed, but they get zero help at all for people finding it. So if you happen to come across this, and the things you can do to try to help would be like click a like button. Even if you hit dislike button, engagement helps. Like whatever. If you're like, fuck those guys, they suck, and you hit dislike, whatever. Thank you, I appreciate the engagement.
But if you do hit dislike, tell us why. At least tell us what we can do to be better.
Yeah, that would definitely help too. Which also like commenting, subscribing, because YouTube. I'm not an expert on YouTube algorithms, but all those things really help a ton. And there's a ton of folks out there, because like I've talked with quite a few people, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is a fantastic idea." And most of them weren't even like service members or veterans. They were just like civilian dudes that were like, we support the military, or like we were just kind of more curious about it, and like, wow, this would be super helpful, because we might be in a spot one day where we interact with somebody, and it'd be great to know what they might be dealing with, maybe.
Yeah.
So all that stuff would be super helpful. And we'll like the topics and all that stuff. We'll get more later. We'll figure out what episode number 2 will be. We're gonna try to have a consistent upload like each week, or maybe like days of the week, so that way you guys can all like I can't wait for, I don't know, Thursday, because then the next episode where maybe I feel like some sense of community it's going to come out. And speaking of community, there's a Discord server, so I've been trying to help vets for a while. I have a very tiny Discord server I started, which actually got me banned off of Reddit also. That's a whole other thing. I don't get why veterans have an issue on these things about helping each other out. But the idea with this Discord server was to give a place for folks to connect, maybe get jobs, vent about stuff, because as I've seen lots of folks venting on Facebook. And I'm sure at least a good chunk of them don't know anyone can see that for the most part. Like if I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed and I can see it, that means like an employer can see it if they want to check you out. And so I was like, if I can give like a Discord, which is kind of like Facebook, but only like whoever's in the server can see it, then it's not as risky to yourself. You might not lose as many opportunities or take as much personal risk, because also we don't actually know your real name unless you want to tell us your real name. So there's just like less risk associated to like seeking out, at least to others, for like backup. And so like I just decided, hey, we'll turn that into like the Discord for this whole thing. So if you're a veteran, I'll have a link for it, at least on YouTube. I think do you get description boxes on Spotify and stuff like that? Is that a thing?
Yeah. I'm not sure about all the other platforms, but on Spotify we'll have the show notes. We can put a link in there.
All right, sweet. So yeah, well, there should be a Discord link for it. And if not, maybe just comment on it. I don't know if you can comment on podcasts on like other places, or you can send us an email to counteraction22 22@gmail.com. Apparently, someone took CounterAction@gmail.com, so I put in 22 because I was like, well, there's another tie to what we're trying to help with, which is that 22 a day problem. So CounterAction22@gmail.com is the way if you guys need a link because it doesn't work on whatever platform you guys are on. As well as if you're like, hey, I want you guys to share about your experiences with this, or I would love to come on because we just use Skype for this is what we used. And so as long as you got access to Skype, or don't have to show your face, you can just hide your camera as long as you're able to talk with us, or we can use a Discord or something if you want to talk, or just like email us what happened, and then we'll just like share like, hey man, we've been there, or know folks who have. That works too.
Yeah, so it's just, something we talked about that we want this to kind of grow into is, we want you guys to be able to email us, maybe questions you have and we can answer them, or put the call out for other people that watch and listen to answer them. We want this to be somewhere where you guys can feel safe sharing your experiences or getting help, or maybe we're just kind of a resource where you email us and say, I don't know how XYZ process works. Maybe you're having problems with the VA. Maybe we can get you in touch with somebody that can help. So we want this to be you guys. We want you guys to be involved. We want the listeners to really get something out of this. So it's if there's something we need to talk about, let us know.
Yep, and we also want to make sure anyone that's not military can feel like they can listen to this without us feeling like, yeah, you non-serving people are pieces of shit. Like, nah, like we want them to be able to like hang out and be like, oh look, these guys are people. They're not completely broken. They might got issues, whether it's from combat or not, but like they're hireable at least, bare minimum.
Yeah, this isn't supposed to be like a doom and gloom kind of thing, we're gonna be. I'm sure we're gonna be talking about, in addition to all the service related stuff. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of just real world or just more lighthearted stuff. So it's not just gonna be us
stories. There's always fun boot camp stories. Pranks or good times while you're in. Stuff we miss. Stuff we don't miss. Like that's maybe funnier. Like, I don't miss being up at 2 a.m., for example, mopping the ceiling and the walls on my floor, because apparently that's how you clean your room for a very detailed field day. Don't miss that one at all.
Yeah, I just don't miss field day.
Yeah, hopefully this isn't. The majority is like informational / like positive hope, and not like, oh my gosh, the world's gonna end.
Yeah.
So. All right. Did you have anything you wanted to add in before I kind of give our little final plugs?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. This is the first episode. I'll probably try to pin this on our YouTube channel for at least a little while, so that way it's at the very top, at least until we're a little bit more established. That way it's kind of like because the bio only lets you put in so many characters, so I had to cut like our stuff down quite a bit. So. So hopefully this will be like something that's just up there for a while. So if you guys want to give topics, just share like anything that you can comment on the different platforms helps the most, because those algorithms really need lots of engagement. I believe podcasts are the same way, as well as hitting like buttons or whatever the equivalent is on these different podcasts. Jonathan does more of the podcasts. I've done YouTube for a couple of years on different platforms, and so I'm a little bit more familiar with YouTube stuff. That also really helps, as well as if you got any ideas, concurrences, dissents, all that stuff, you can also email it to counteraction22@gmail.com. And I just made us a Twitter page. I don't know if I actually remember to send that to you, but so if you search CounterAction, you'll find us. But for some reason, the handle right now is @CounterAction15. So it made it on its own. I forget how I changed it when I did my gaming platform Twitter. You can change the handle, but for now we'll just keep it that way. But if you just search CounterAction, you'll see the same logo from YouTube and all those. Like you'll probably spot it pretty quick. In the bio is like the same thing as our mission statement. So thank you guys all so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Have a great week. If you need help, call somebody. Well, I'll try to remember to put like in description boxes like crisis lines.
Yeah, so exactly.
That way, that's like easy. Like if you don't know who they are, Otherwise, maybe call like your VA. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt, but if you say, "Hey, I need help. Can you help me make a crisis plan?" That's the thing they did for me. So that they take people in your life that you're close to, and they'll list it down. So that way, if you call them because you are having a really tough time, they kind of have an idea of who to like tell. Like, hey, this guy needs your help. So and they can try to hook you up, and they do more stuff with it, as well as at the very least tell us, and we can try to figure out with like
Yep.
Discord and things, because right now there's like 15, 16 of us that are in there, and so far we're all pretty good with trying to help each other out. And as it grows, I'm sure there'll be more and more people that are the same way.
Yeah, and
So
if you can't find anywhere else to turn, shoot us an email. You know, we have smartphones now. We'll get the email, and we will do everything we can. You know, we don't want to leave you guys hanging.
yeah. So all right, y'all. Thank you guys so much for watching this first episode. We really appreciate it. Have a great week and be a part of the counteraction to veteran issues. See you guys.
See you later.